Hello everyone. So today I want to discuss a concept on recovery with concurrent transactions. So till now we are discussed whenever a single transaction failure occurs, then if the transaction failure occurs, we are going to observe whether it is whether the transaction failure after the execution of read operation or write operation or after commit or before commit. So likewise we are defining the mechanism. So in this case, in order to recovery the data in the database, then we are implementing the technique called log based recovery system. So here in this log based recovery system, here we are going to be defined. So a log file is going to be created. It holds the collection of log records. So nothing but it is used for the concurrency control mechanism. Nothing but multiple transactions are executing concurrently in an interleaved fashion. So we can observe the transactions, whether they are start, read, write and commit, all the transactions. And so each and every log record is going to be maintained properly. So here in this case, how you can define with the concurrent transactions? We all already very well know. You can execute in the mechanism of deferred database modification and immediate update database modification. The two mechanisms are defined here. So and here in this case, every time the log records, every time the log file is going to be defined here. And one more mechanism is, along with the log based recovery, we are observed in order to fastly search which transaction is failed and which transaction is committed or not. In order to define, the pointer can be implemented for efficient search. The point which we are going to be calling it is a checkpoint. We can observe the recently started transaction from the backward mechanism, and till that you can identify which is failed and which transaction has to be undone and which transaction has to be redone. So likewise we are implementing checkpoint mechanism. And one more mechanism is in the concurrency control system. We are implementing strictly the locking mechanism. So here in this case, you can define the shared lock and exclusive lock. Likewise, we may perform, you can define the strict two-phase locking mechanism here in this case. The strict two-phase locking, in a sense, it can be executed in the two phases. The first phase is going to be calling it as the growing phase, and the second phase is going to be calling it as the shrinking phase. You can continuously place the locks, and after the completion of read, write and commit operations, you started to release the locks. So likewise the locks may be obtained and the locks may be released. So likewise you can execute the strict two-phase locking. So nothing but whatever we are previously defined, all that can be defined in the recovery with concurrent transaction. First thing is maintaining the log based recovery. So is in the form of creating a log file. Nothing but you can create for multiple transactions. So why? Because the multiple transactions are executing in the concurrency manner. So and here in this case you can observe the two types, and deferred database modification and immediate database modification. In one situation you can simply redo, in another situation you can perform both undo and redo. And for efficient searching you can define the checkpoint mechanism. And to implement properly for each and every transaction, you can define the strict two-phase locking by placing the lock and by releasing the lock. And you can clearly observe which transaction is properly committed and which transaction is properly aborted. So likewise we may observe the thing. So here in this case you can observe the two lists here. One list is you have to prepare how many number of transactions we have to be undone and how many number of transactions we have to be redone. So for this purpose you are going to maintain the undo list and we are going to maintain the redo list. So likewise this can be useful in order to recover a system from a crash or from any kind of failure occurs. And observe where we have to start. So likewise we are going to define the checkpoint from where we have to start is nothing but you can start with the backwards, and you can stop where the TI transaction, first TI start is going to be there. Likewise until you have to found the checkpoint, you are going to use the mechanism of scanning the backward mechanism and observe in each and every time whether the particular transaction is start or whether it is commit. So nothing but if it is commit means you can execute the redo list, and simply start is there and there is no commit means you have to undo. So if it is commit you have to redo. If it is only start, then there is no commit means you have to undo. So likewise you have to execute and prepare both undo list and redo list. So likewise you should execute each and every transaction. So here There is an example. So we are already discussed so many examples. Now we would see one more example in the recovery. So likewise, it may be nothing but internally it runs a step-by-step procedure to scan each and everything and to know the status of the each and every transaction. Here this is one of the best example to keep the log file. Here it holds the sequence of a set of log records. So here in this case T0 transaction is there, T1 is there, T2 is there, and T3 is there. So likewise we are executing the taking the 4 set of transactions and here in this case T0 is started and 2 values we are having, means initial value is 0. It executes the write operation, the updated value is 10. So it executes both the read and write operation, and after that the T0 is going to be committed, means T0 is perfectly over. Its changes are properly done on the disk. Next, T1 transaction starts. A T1 transaction executes read and write operation on the particular data item B. Its initial value is 0 and its updated value is 10. It executes the write operation, but there is no commit, means we don't guarantee that these changes are done on the disk. So it means they are partially committed. Its changes are done in the buffer but not yet propagated to the disk. So we should observe this thing. Here there is a commit, means it should be saved on the disk. Here there is no commit, means it is in the partially committed state. It is not yet committed till now. Next, immediately we don't find here commit. Then here the T2 transaction starts here. It reads the data item C value. Then it is updated here. And again it reads the C data item and again it is updated. And here we can't find out, there is no commit operation for the transaction C. So likewise observe. So here there is a checkpoint here. The checkpoint here is nothing but we are taking T1 and T2, and after that the T3 transaction is started and it executes, and T3 transaction is going to be committed. Means here there is a set of log records and each and every state is executes properly read, write and commit operation, and along with that there is, in order to search fastly, so which transactions we have to be start, likewise multiple transactions which are there in the situation. Then in order to recover fastly we should define the checkpoints, nothing but we have to define the breakpoints. So before that this is one task and after that this is task, nothing but here the T3 is recently executed one. So before T3, T0, T1, T2, 3 transactions are get executed. So we have to observe and we have to concentrate on these 3 transactions. So T0 is commit is there, nothing but you have to redo T0. T1 there is no commit, so you have to undo this. T2 is there is no commit, you have to undo this. So the checkpoint is there. So here in this case you can observe these 3, you can scan these 3. So backwards you can scan these 3, and in this case this is the earliest statement, earliest transaction, earliest log file which is executing. So simply you have to ignore this and you have to follow the things which are defined for this checkpoint. So here scan in step 4 and stops here, means here. So nothing but you have to define all these things, that there is a checkpoint, and you can define where we have to redo and where we have to undo. You can observe each and everything, and whatever the transaction which is started earliestly from the last, if you are scanning the backwards, it is the start you are identified here. So before is the important thing and after the start this is the earliest one, so you have to simply ignore this. So likewise you should define the checkpoint. The same concept is defined in the recovery with the concurrent transaction. Whatever we are discussed earlier, all those things are covered here. So first thing is implement the log based recovery mechanism, means keep on maintaining the log files, and the second condition is define the two-page logging mechanism, nothing but place the logs and release the logs. And third thing is here the logging records that can be done, the 2 type of mechanism by executing the 2 operations, redo and undo, and where we have to search. In this case you have to identify the checkpoint mechanism, checkpoint, and here in this case you can find out the undo list and redo list. Based upon that you can execute the recovery algorithm. You can run the recovery algorithm, which to undo and which transaction you have to redo. So likewise you can recover the multiple transaction failures, or you can recover from the system crash. So for in both the situations, the log file will be defined as a backup. So it will be very useful for us. So hope you understood. Thank you.